All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the LSP Method Podcast. I'm Michael Fern, and I have an extra special guest. I'm super excited about this one. We have Al McGregor, all the way. I was going to say from the UK, but he's just told me he's over in Denmark, in the home of Lego. So we'll chat to him about what that means.
Yeah,
Welcome,
yeah.
Al.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah, good, good. Excited for this. We had a chat in London a few months back when I was there, but I'm really looking forward to diving into what you do with Lego Serious Play. So I'm going to do a tiny, tiny potted history for you, but you fill in, obviously all the juicy bits. So Al obviously does Lego Serious Play amongst some other things, but he uses it in a really interesting field in conflict resolution, and he uses it with some really interesting audiences in terms of in corrections like prison populations and police and first responders and a whole bunch of really, really, really interesting spaces. So I got to learn a little bit about it when I was chatting with Al, but I'm going to hand over to you, man, and you just share like who are you, background, what do you do, and yeah, and bring out some models that I got you to do as well.
Ace, absolutely ace. Thank you. What a great intro. Yeah, so I think, I mean, just straight in with the tower. Yeah, I kind of got really interested in conflict resolution and realized that there's a lot of listening. And originally had kind of done lots of coaching stuff and lots of talking. And actually, I think it's far more about subconscious listening when you're willing to resolve stuff. And I hate conflict, right? So
Yeah, man,
like
I
I
hear
think
ya.
kind of the ability to kind of avoid it sometimes is necessary. But I think what's really exciting is I managed to find a way to find some preventative tools and use Lego Serious Play as a preventative method where
Mm,
you can pick up on subconscious cues where somebody was going to experience trauma or pain or
mm,
something was going to happen sometimes before they've even had the thought. And so you could avert this.
Interesting.
So my tower is Pandora's box because the
Cool.
question I get asked, so I go all over the world and I've been doing this for about 6 years really in two different companies.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, Lego Serious Play at the sharp edge, like I kind of
It
break a lot
is.
of the rules.
I love that. I love that. It's funny. Rules has come up a
Yeah,
little bit in this, and I love it. I love rule breaking. I love there being no rules, some guidance, but rules. I love it. Tell us more how you break rules and things
yeah,
like that.
absolutely. Well, you talk. I'll just jump in. I'll explain the model. I think I'll explain a lot. But
Yeah,
yeah,
do
we're
that.
incredibly tough populations, and I think my kind of mantra is helping people to kind of know what to do when they don't know what to do,
Mm,
and giving them the kind of tools to do that. And yeah, Pandora's box is something I get asked a lot, specifically in prison stuff. Is like, oh, we don't want to do this. You're going to open Pandora's box, or like, or we're not ready for that. What's going to happen?
yeah.
And my argument is Pandora's box, like we've all got one. So, if you, Michael, if you have a think, I won't ask you to say it, but people who are watching this, you have a think, what's in your box? Don't say it out loud or say it to anyone that you might be watching this with. We've all got one, and it,
Yeah.
it will be opened. And I think if you're lucky, it gets opened when you've got a loving family, you've got money, resources, you can deal with it, yeah, fine.
Mm,
You're not locked up. If I think you're unlucky, it's open by circumstance. You're at your weakest, most
mm,
vulnerable. You've got no defenses. And I think there's a difference between that box being opened and all hell breaking loose.
yeah.
I think it's how you prepare, predict, and there are markers and things you can do if you're willing to lead with vulnerability and failure, which as a man I find really difficult. And a lot of it's predominantly men that I work with, but
Yeah.
women too. We really struggle with this. We can't ask for help at all. We can't even ask for help to go to the doctor, let alone kind of
Deep
get
stuff.
this
Yeah.
going. So I think men's mental health. We do a lot of our men need to talk more. You're like,
Mm,
okay, great. About what? What do you say? What do you say to a friend who's really struggling? We've all had friends who
yeah.
are struggling. Um, and so yeah, I'll launch into my tower.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Let
here
me
it is.
picture on the big
Right.
screen, and we'll have a look.
Okay. So yeah, we'll go from the kind of in the bit. So that's me in the middle there, and that shark. So with the clear heads and the kind of helicopter rotor blades. And then around me is this kind of Pandora's box of what's going on. So there's transparency there, which I've learned. And yeah, my LinkedIn is full of successes and you worked with some incredible people. And yeah, great. But I'm going to talk a bit about my failures and my kind of, because I'm going to practice what I preach. And this is what I do in sessions. You start with like, right, let's go. Let's have a look at this. So there I'm in the middle with lots of learning. On the outside of things, starting with the kind of positive part. So this guy is my business partner, who's called Mark Onot Bowl. He's a senior non-commissioned officer in the Royal Marines, and he is the one who watches my back. We work so well as a team. I'm the kind of at the front, talking and all that kind of stuff, and I miss things, and he gets my blind spots. And that, if I was going to describe what I do, it's looking at blind spots because that's where the gold is for me, particularly people who are struggling or going through trauma or all that kind of stuff. So he's great. So he's up there and he's kind of the key to the door. Then over here, these two. So you mentioned in your, I think your kind of first one about Michael Buckle and Johan Roos, right? So this is Johan Roos doing his stuff and creating this method. And I really liked what you said about the differences between the kind of big four of how they, and this is Michael with his owl. And I will echo what you said. If you want depth, like real, you want to go into this like big time, like that course is phenomenal. Um, and yeah, great. So he's been quite influential, which has been fab. And then this guy over here is a guy called Gary Bamford, who is the ex-Sergeant Major of the Special Forces SBS. And he's been hugely influential recently in kind of doing a lot of work together in his company, Duratus. I cannot recommend them enough. Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, so all great, all positive stuff. But the juicy stuff, like the real juicy stuff, I think is kind of around here. So my Pandora's box has been opened 4 times, right? So the shark, I'd say, would be, and I'm not going to get kind of too morbid, but yeah, I got divorced and my mum died within 3 months of each other. And there's a lot I could have done there that would have meant what happened afterwards, which is all hell breaking loose, didn't have happened. I couldn't stop some of that. But actually, that extreme ownership, I know Jocko Willnick talks a bit about this, like, extreme ownership, like, it's my fault. What did I do wrong? Because at the time, it was everybody else's fault. It's not my fault. This is awful. This happened to me. And then this one over here is the kind of spider. What can I see there? There we go. Yep. So as this is happening, as all hell is beginning to break loose, my behaviors are starting to spiral, like in a way of kind of, I'm almost kind of Dorian Gray. Like by day, I'm this university lecturer and I'm putting books out and doing this stuff. And by night, like I'm drinking too much. I'm going out on way too many dates. I'm kind of just getting number and number and number. And if you told me at the time I needed some help, I just would have said, no, I don't, I'm fine. Like as everybody else. And I think that's kind of the core, at the core of me here, like is kind of just not asking forgiveness, not making excuses, just being like, yeah, this was rough. And then the kind of snake here is those behaviors resulted in a professional allegation, which, although untrue in the main, there were parts of it that like I really did do. And I was still like, not my fault, not my fault, not me, not me, not me. And I think that story or those group, my Pandora's box is way open. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Absolutely. And I think it is the nucleus and the core of now helping others is you kind of go in and if you can spot the signs and using Lego Serious Play with these kind of really 20 years of research into hostage negotiation skills and listening, not talking, and I think that's the beauty of the builds and kind of, I'll talk a bit more about my prison building a minute, which is where I'm doing most of my work now. But Lego Serious Play for me is picking up things that aren't being said. And I'm sitting with prisoners and stuff, and they're saying things, wonderful things, like, like beautiful things to each other and, prison officers to prison staff. And it's stopping people killing themselves, and I guess, I mean, it's not a tower, but, people who kind of know me, like off camera and stuff, but like, even, I've got like the Lego man on my arm. Now, in some weird irony, I got that before I even discovered Lego Serious Play, because I like the psychology aspects of it. And, I kind of went off and got a master's degree and, really studied it, became a coach. Great, loved it. And I'm kind of coming away from psychology into communication now, a lot more, and away from the interventions, because I think peer groups, if you upskill a peer group, so you talk about KPMG and stuff, and huge respect for people in the kind of corporate area, that's some hard stuff. If you upskill a team around that to look after each other, they don't need to have degrees in psychology, is kind of what I found here. They need to have just enough to spot the signs and have a conversation. And Lego Serious Play is a great tool for that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. First off, thank you, Al, for sharing all that amazing stuff. Where to go? First of all, love the builds. I love the metaphor of Pandora's box to start with. And I think what struck me those first ones, you had the first things you said was around the people. That one side was, around the Lego series play method and obviously professionally some of these other people. And then you went around to, that shark and the spider and the snake and sort of, shared some amazing stuff. And this is what you see in your work, and this is why I love it. More in a corporate realm. I don't, I sometimes see stories like that, but for you, like for people in prison, first responders, people dealing with, situations of that conflict resolution, this is, like you said, it's life and death. It's serious. It's very deep
Mm.
stuff. So thank you for sharing that. Amazing, amazing
And
work.
internal, I think internal conflict resolution. And I think this,
Yeah.
I've got this almost ridiculous optimism of like, I
Mm,
just find a light in any darkness.
yeah.
Like post-traumatic growth in my master's is a kind of, I know a lot, it's quite widely known now, which is really good. But the idea of, finding the good bits in it, but not denying the bad. And I think we got a real problem with denying the bad. We're like, oh,
Mm,
don't want to talk about that. Like, it's a
yeah,
bit
yeah.
prickly. But actually, in that, well, if that hadn't have happened to me, well, we wouldn't be talking. I'd
Yeah.
be lecturing off doing some psychology thing, kind of whatever. And there'd be 202 people. I know we could said talked about the kind of the stuff in America with some police in America.
Mm,
There were 202 police officers who were breathing because of Lego Serious Play.
yeah.
Like, I'll take it. Had I not
Yeah.
had the courage to own it and go into it, it's very uncomfortable. Sitting here, I was just like, is this the right thing to do? Do I do this? Do this to the internet? Is this?
Mm,
Hmm. But I'm asking others to do that, and I'm like, okay, it's human, like it's real. And I think,
yeah.
particularly prisoners, as long as you're authentic and real,
Mm.
like you're gonna be fine, kind of walk into a prison. But yeah,
Talk.
and I think, kudos where it is, but like Mark here, um, who's smaller than me and ginger. I mean, I'm a little bit ginger, right? But like, but he's been when my kind of last business folded and I couldn't actually get out of the States, like there was all kinds of complications. And it was fine and it worked out fine. And he scooped me up and we call it almost like an extraction. And
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue what was going on. And if
Yeah.
you'd asked me at the time, I think, we shouldn't go up into our own heads without adult supervision.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I like that.
if the way we sit around and work with some very tough people who just take one look and go, Lego, no, I'm not doing it,
Yeah.
and not a chance, like a
Yeah.
dream on.
Talk
Am
more
I
about talk more about that. Like you obviously, we all come up against that to very varying
Mm.
degrees, but I guess the sort of corporate pushback versus some of the pushback you might experience. Talk about that. What have you seen? What have you felt has worked?
Hugely? I mean, yeah, we kind of talked a bit before. I've got some tips because I think I've kind of experienced some quite full on
Mm,
workshops, either wrong or kind of Pandora's box. The word
yeah.
X has been used. There's a bit of omelette and eggs. If you don't do it, that person potentially is destined to a really grisly end.
Yeah.
Um, but more than that, my thing is, I say, I get it. Like, I get you don't want to talk about your own stuff. Like, I understand
Mm,
that. Like, not everyone can own their stuff and be that vulnerable straight away. Like, I do understand. Who's your best friend?
mm,
And when they come to you saying, my husband's left me, my wife's left me, I've got a drinking problem, I've lost my job,
mm.
I've done something silly, I've made a mistake. What do you say? And I think one of my tips, I think is, and not tips because I'm amazing, tips I think just it's great that you're sharing. I think it's good that we all share stuff.
Yeah.
Is I kind of aim for no empathy, and which sounds backwards, and I will explain, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like me saying to you, I know what it's like to be an Australian because I've
Yeah.
spent 9 months in Australia. No, I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
It's
know
like
and I mean from the macro level, British people are quite good at telling Australians like to empathizing and telling them how they're meant to be and stuff. And
yeah.
actually, if you change your language there and say it sounds like being an Australian is X, I'm kind of putting
Mm,
myself out there to be corrected. And you
yeah.
say, yeah, it's amazing, our weather is way better than yours, and we say
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is.
It's
So this
almost
thing
like
of
it's yeah, sorry,
yeah,
it's almost like it's offering out that rather than placing it on someone, rather than you saying that empathy of I know what it's like to be an Australian. It's like, you're foisting that on your view on the person. But the way you describe it there, it sounds like it's almost like you're reflecting back what you heard, and it's an invitation to, take it further or be corrected. I like that.
absolutely coaching language. I try and be as much of a novice and as
Mm,
much as kind of yeah, get it as wrong as I can, as quickly as I can, because I think
Yeah.
kind of that just sets the tone for workshops where people feel safe enough to then kind of go, well, and I should say as well, lots of my work is all supervised, and like it's in prisons and stuff. So I've got psychologists on hand for this. A lot of this kind of stuff that I do, like my full course. You talk about length of courses,
Yeah.
is 5 weeks long. Like it's a big university module stuff, and then the stuff that I
Yeah.
kind of tend to do. Mostly is a kind of 1 day, like top tips for people who are struggling with conflicts, and then a 2 day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's something beautiful in that. Like I haven't got anything to say to it. I spent some time last week with a guy called Ricky Killeen, who I've got a huge amount of time for,
Mm.
who attacked someone with a machete and
Mm.
did a long time in prison for it, and he's turned it around. He's come out. How can I say I know how that feels?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Just
I understand. I don't understand, and it's
yeah.
almost offensive, and I think we want to help, like we want to get in there, and kind of help and stuff,
Yeah.
and actually by kind of taking a step back from the empathy thing and go, it sounds like that was really hard.
Mm.
Yeah, it was. But I think as a facilitator as well, particularly when you're doing massive groups or it's quite contentious, or you've got, clearly some politics going on, whatever, be it corporate
Mm.
education, I think you start taking that step back because you want to step in, you want to go, oh, I've had this before, we should do this, or here's a suggestion. Da, da, da.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, this seems like this is, yeah, there's something here.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, just reflecting on that, it's, it is the coaching, facilitating, guiding language versus, I talk about this a bit in my training that, we have these hats of, there's coach, there's facilitator, but there's also, consultant, expert, there's trainer. And they're all, I think because they're all subtly different, people just get them all mixed up. And the one that I talk the most about is the difference between that true facilitation and, you might be the consultant or the expert brought in normally by your client, but with Lego Series Play, you're playing that true facilitation role where you can't give the answer. And you know all this as well. It's like just what you're saying. You
Yeah,
can't do that because it's their perspective. It's their, they need to own it. It needs to come from them. And that's exactly the language you're using around coaching. And it's so much more
absolutely.
powerful because it's their thing.
Absolutely. I think the perspective stuff, there's a massive video I'd recommend. I think it's called The Science of Consciousness, TED Talk by Anil Seth, like he was a British
Yeah.
professor,
Yeah.
talking about kind of science and cognitive neuroscience behind perception. And his
Mm.
argument is that we hallucinate our reality.
Yeah. I love that one.
And the example he gives, which blew me away, is if we all think of a song that really means something to us, be it something that makes us really sad and cry or something that makes us really happy.
Mm.
The artist, when they recorded that song, didn't record it for Michael Fern.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't ever intended to have that meaning. You put the meaning on it.
Mm.
And so, his argument is yes, the world is kind of somewhat how we see it, but actually, the kind of the way we project from the inside out,
Mm.
um, that fits with Lego Serious Play completely, isn't it? Because it's
Mm.
plastic bricks. Let's be real here. It's plastic bricks.
Yeah. Yeah.
People have these life-changing sessions. And I think what's really exciting to me about that from an academic research point is if that's true, then things like PTSD, kind
Mm.
of like what's going on inside there, is if you can get some of that out into those bricks and you can project positive meaning out of that,
Mm.
then I'm starting to see real change, like real
Mm.
difference. And obviously in the prison system and stuff, there's so many mental health problems, and it's a luxury. It's a luxury and it's a privilege.
Mm.
Being able to do Lego Serious Play where you're supervised by kind of clinical psychologists and you watch people, the men in there, predominantly for the first time ever being able to communicate without, like, to put it into bricks. A lot
Yeah.
of them can't read, so
Mm.
that
Yeah.
hurdle to jump completely.
Yeah.
And you just think is like this could have averted so much,
Yeah.
prevented. This could have helped so much. It's not just the conflict resolution between prisoner to prisoner or prison officer to prisoner. Um, and I mean, it sounds almost like I'm dumbing it down a little bit and stuff, but it is beautiful. It's one of
Mm.
the, it's just one of the most amazing things to see, and the hope, and that's the bit, the last bit of Pandora's box's story is
Mm.
that all things come out and it's all terrible, and I think a lot of people missed, and I didn't realize it at all. But the last bit of the story is Zeus puts, the Greek god and stuff, puts a
Mm.
little ball of hope in at the end to counteract.
Ah.
You're not going to put them back. I mean, you can't undo what's happened,
Yeah.
but there's that little ball of hope.
Oh, I didn't know
Um,
that. I love that. It's such a good ending to it. That's interesting. I know, I want to touch on Pandora's box again for a second. I know you've got some tips that we're going to get to because, you've
sure.
already sort of given a few out there. some sort of practical, really focused tips. But there was one thing just to go back. You talked about Pandora's box and you talked about conflict resolution. And I think many of us think of those as the other. So it's like, oh, we don't want to open Pandora's box in the team, in the company, or someone else's Pandora's box. And then we talk about conflict resolution. It's always, again, it's not internal. It's always the outside. It's always between two people or between me and someone else. And I loved what you said, a little while back where you said, no, it's your Pandora's box, like the individual's Pandora's box being open. And it's conflict resolution within ourselves, internal with ourselves. So I just want to make that I just had that. I was like, wow, it's like that perspective shift again, where it's like we often think of those things external, but it's within us. So I just wanted to share that because I was like, as you were saying that, I was like, wow, that's like a reframe for me. But I do want to get to these tips that you've been talking about. So, you just talked about no empathy, which I think is an amazing tip, a counterintuitive one. And you described it well in terms of the subtle sort of shift of
Yeah.
no empathy. What else you got for us? What other tips can you lay on us?
All the stuff when it
Yeah.
all goes wrong.
Yeah. What else? Yeah. What are these tips?
Yeah.
And
I think the no empathy thing, absolutely. And it sounds so weird, it sounds so brutally cold, but
yeah.
actually I think people are feeling a ton. So I've got a few, and I'm going to kind of explain why, each one and why they work and how it can help.
Yeah.
But you nailed it with the kind of all the the conflict resolution with two people and people not looking inside themselves first. You're
Mm,
saying by the time it gets to a conflict, it's almost already too late. Like
mm,
6 months ago, there was something going on.
mm,
Like what happened? Why was that? What was going on there and stuff? And it's not enough. We're terrible at performance management, aren't we? And this is leading to my first tip,
mm.
which is this, okay?
Oh,
Which is
let me bring that up on the screen for everyone
that's you,
visually.
right? So be ready, okay?
Okay. God, no.
I'm gonna talk to your subconscious here, and we're gonna do it live, and it's gonna be. I didn't even give you any warning either
Oh,
as well.
hang
I'm
on.
very
I should probably get a side by side so people can see me react.
to see
All right, love that. I
reaction.
can still see the model. Great. Tell us, what is this model?
Yeah. So this is called a reflected best self. So
Mm,
we're really good at taking people through disciplinary. This is what you did wrong. This is when you did it. This is how you did it. This is what happened. This is the consequence. This is what the steps we're going to put in place, whatever. If I'm calling you in for a praising session,
mm,
like, Michael, you did great today. Well done. Good job.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Nothing. Like, yeah. And it's weak, like it's kind of, it's not sticking, it's not powerful. And loads of us, and you did it. I could see the shift, like the subtle subconscious shift. You're like, oh God, where's he going with this?
Yeah. Oh.
Like, which is good. And thank you for your trust. And I promise,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
promise
Yeah.
it's.
Always, Al.
Um, but I think the way you do that, and when Rue's talking about the flatland, taking it into 3D.
Yeah.
So so I'll explain it of
Mm.
what this is, and then I'll explain why it works, and then you can take a screenshot and do whatever you want to do later on. So
I
this is
love
you.
it. Okay.
So what I'm doing in this is I'm reflecting when I think you've been at your best
Mm.
from meeting you, a handful of times and kind of online and in person and stuff. Great.
Mm.
And so the model itself. So here's you. You've got a clear head. You've got a jetpack because you're jetting around the world, which I
Yeah.
really respect.
Mm.
I think kind of international travel with Lego, we've all been there. I think was it William, but William was saying about getting stuck in customs.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then this is your communication, and this is your superpower. And I said this to your
Mm.
face, and then amazing. And all these flowers, all the people, and by blowing open Lego Serious Play, and which is quite scary. It's quite a risque thing to do. And
Mm.
I have a huge respect for that. I think people have different stuff. Per Christensen, great. Michael McCool, great, awesome. But I think you in particular, your superpower is raising other people's flags.
Mm. Yeah.
You're doing this for me. Like this is, yes, there's some gain for you, and yes, it'll be great to share, and yes, whatever. But I think that's amazing. And I think, the selflessness that comes from that, it's like it's starting to, it's Sunday evening. Sunday evening in Melbourne?
It's Sunday night. I'm actually on holiday.
Sunday.
That's why I'm in this room.
Right, yeah. That's dedication, and I think
Mm.
your dedication, that clear head and stuff, and I think all these little sprouts, of you helping people and kind of helping to put stuff out, I think that's amazing.
Mm.
Um, so kind of building reflective yourself, and you build it out of a model or you write down 2 paragraphs. Now the difference is if I was just going to praise you, I'd be like, I think it's great what you do, Michael. I love the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
I'm not
thanks.
I'm not going into detail. I'm not going into time. I'm not going into kind of that stuff. And it comes from quite a dark place, which is a reverse eulogy, in that I find that a lot of people who are kind of up against it or in the dark, metaphorically,
Yeah.
um, say good things. Like they can't, of course you can't, we're all struggling. But if you turn around
Yeah.
and say, "Look, the only time we ever say what we really mean positively is in somebody's eulogy." I'm like, well,
Yeah.
let's not wait that long. Let's tell them
Yeah.
now.
Tell them now. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good one. That's a great one, right? Okay. And then here's my boat. Right. Okay, so
Yeah.
boat full of tips.
Ah,
So
cool.
number one, okay, this one here. This is the sounds like and its permissions. So if you feel it's getting in your session, you feel like it's getting a bit tasty, and you're like, oh, and you're not quite sure. You think somebody wants to share, but you're not sure what's going
Yeah.
on. I find that sometimes I can say permission to ask a question or ask a challenge about your model. Challenges are great in that kind of this is very much beyond the model. Rule number one, never go beyond the model. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, okay, we're going beyond the model, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but if you're gonna do that, I think permissions are essential. If you once you
Mm.
pass that line, you're like, right, permission to ask you a question, and they can say no. Actually, no, this is not. I'm not ready to talk about this. Or I'm not ready to go into
Yeah.
this. So, that's really
Well,
good.
can I talk more about that one before you go into the other ones?
Yeah, sure.
It's interesting with permission. So you were using it around almost like permission for like with people to go deeper into their model. And I love that. I often say that, part of what we do with Lego Series Play is just by the method itself and our facilitation is we give people permission to say the things that wouldn't normally be said. So it's almost like there's a few steps along the way. It's like we're giving permission. We're saying, go for it. And I do a couple of
Mm,
things in my Lego Series Play practice where I actually, I call it the devil's advocate, where I say, what's the thing you don't like? What's the thing you hate? What's the thing, and it's all about permission. And I love what you're talking about. It's like taking that permission further. It's like, can I, or can we dive deeper into that, and almost checkpointing that for people that then say yes or no. So I think permissions is this. It's funny. It's always floating around. It's always unsaid
mm.
in a room. And oh, I love that one. But keep going, keep going.
Yeah,
Permissions.
yeah. I think, and it gives you sometimes a sledgehammer is appropriate. Sometimes
Mm.
someone will build something, and and you say, permission to give you a really powerful challenge here. You did this to yourself,
Yeah.
kind and it's huge, but the permission thing, it's like they're still in control because they
Yeah.
might not be ready to hear it. But honestly, 9 times out of 10 in experience with hundreds of people across, police, military, whatever, they want to hear it. I think
Mm.
the way I use Legacy of Play is like an enigma machine. They want to decode what's going on. They
Yeah.
want to out their head or out, they want to be able to communicate better. So anyway, that's really good.
Yeah.
Um, so this one with the pickaxe and the thing, they're all
Yeah.
connected. That's the three asks. And there's a lady called Jo told me this, and I fell off my perch. Now, you might have heard this from a corporate land, but I've never heard it. Okay, which is, and this is almost kind of selling like a serious play. Like,
Okay.
how do you get across what you want to do? So kind of I work a lot in closed door institutions. Like you can't market to a police force, you can't market to a prison. You got to kind of how do you get in there?
Yeah.
It's the three asks. Number one, what are you asking for that they can do very easily and very quickly?
Mm.
Number two, what's the main thing you want? And number three is the crazy blue sky thing that you've got
Mm.
going on. So I'll kind of give you an example. And I start my conversations like that. If it's kind of not even a sell, but like if it's a kind of someone talking to someone for the first time and then go into small talk. I think we're really, I'm a pretty decent dude. I kind of
Mm.
start off and be like, oh, hi, right, yeah, right,
Yeah.
great. What are you here for? What do you want? Like, like you've got 15 minutes of my time. Like, what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah.
So in Lego Series Play, it's a very difficult thing to get across. If you haven't done it, and whatever. So, this, for example, will be Michael, could you spare an hour to do a podcast, please? Be great.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to, continue to stay in touch because I'm on a mission to change rehabilitation in prisons wholesale, where my vision is Lego Series Play in every prison, as they use it and it goes and kind of makes it happen.
Yeah.
And number three, I'm going to find a way to put some of this subconscious communication into a course or a platform and kind of get that across, and hopefully, really help people and save as many lives as possible and take my ego out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's three asks.
How you going? Then you can go into it. And I think people, what I've found is, when you're selling Lego Serious Play or and it is a sale, let's call a spade here,
Yeah.
like, and you deserve to be paid for it. If you've trained in this and certified in this, like, fair enough. But
Mm.
people love it. So you can get to it. And I've had people say, thanks so much. I'll call you tomorrow. And it was a half-hour meeting, and
Yeah.
they've got 25 minutes with their kids that they didn't
They didn't
think
have
they
to
were going to have.
waste.
And
Yeah.
I think, have a think about you. what is it that you offer as a facilitator and stuff, and what do you want, it's because that's
Mm.
what we're thinking. When you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
those
It's
new
just
calls,
it's just getting to the chase. It's
we just waffle, but I think
yeah,
start that and then hit them with kindness and just be like, look, this is amazing. Like, it's really good. Not that I'm
yeah,
amazing. Like, so
yeah. I
that's
like
one.
it.
And then this is novice to expert, the green and the crown there.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is I have found, and this is I need to kind of put a bit of a shout out to Jelmer Tick in Holland, because
Mm,
this was his. And he kind of, I mean, I'm sure it's other places as well, but he
mm,
kind of was right, and he really, it really inspired me, and he's right, which is, if you have a group of, let's say, just KPMG, it's
mm.
just KPMG, you're building to solve. It was a long time ago, was it, Michael? I
It
don't
was,
keep you.
yeah. Thankful. No, I shouldn't say that. KPMG were great.
Um, you're going to get a much richer session if you've got a nurse in there, or you've
Mm,
got
mm.
someone who's a novice in that area, because novices tend to build and come up with incredible solutions because they're not harnessed by kind of what's going on. So for
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
like in the prison population, like often I'll try and bring people in who aren't anything to do with prisons or from the outside,
Mm,
and it stops that kind of culture of, like, just all the language and culture that can sometimes be harmful. So novice to
mm.
expert is a great tool, and it can be a family member, it could be a partner, it could be whoever. But if you want real kind of depth to your session, or you think it's going to be a bit stagnant, or they can offer incredible stuff. So that's really good.
Yeah,
And
just on
then,
that, Al, sorry, I want to
oh,
jump in with that one for a second as well. I think with that one, some of my best sessions have been like that, where there's people that have come in left field or novice or, just different. And I've reflected on why. And, one of the big sort of pillars of Lego series play is around creativity. It's just thinking differently. And I
mm,
always think the key to creativity and thinking differently is just diverse stimuli. You just want different things going into the old brain. You want to let the subconscious work on it, connect things like that. And this is, part of what we do in Lego Serious Play. Sometimes it's actually not in the brain, it's actually sort of physical on the table, but something different spits out, and it's all just putting in different stuff. And I think that's what those people do, whether it's the nurse, whether it's someone who's totally left field and, is from a different industry. Like they just give that different perspective and it adds that different stimuli. And that's why the creativity levels just shoot up. So yeah, I always encourage people to do that if they can. It's, I even say something like internal clients, different teams. Like if I just have the one team, I'm like, can you bring along like some of your internal clients, like one or two, just to pepper in there? And
yeah.
it's always the juiciest stuff that comes from them. But yeah, sorry, continue.
No, that's it. And then just, I think, yeah, just one more, which was the briefcase, which everyone
Mm,
can kind of see, which I think is just something that might help with really big workshops that
mm,
I didn't used to do, and it would time me in knots, which is, you're talking like 150 people plus, and
mm.
you've got trucks of Lego and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
How do you want people to communicate, you want that depth, but if all of them talk at the same time, that you're not going to do anything. Like, it's not going to happen and stuff. And it was a tip that I got, and honestly, I have to share, it's so good. Which is, at that level, when you've built your build, you say, right, you finish build, 5 minutes to build, okay, fine. And
mm,
you say, right, now 1 minute to think of the one short sentence you're going to say to describe your model,
yeah.
and
I love it.
put in the constraints on it,
Yeah,
and think that reduces creativity. I would argue completely the opposite,
yeah, yeah.
because I think,
Focus. It can focus you.
yeah, I think, I don't know about you and stuff, but like often I'll build really quickly and then talk about it, and think, different personality types do it different ways and stuff.
Yeah,
But by building and sitting it there and then thinking, and have people say one word, and actually you get the whole thing moving, the pace of the workshop stuff can go so much faster,
yeah,
but with so much more depth. Just one word, and have people say one word and then start crying and stuff like that, because it's just so powerful, and you're like,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's it. There
It's
you
an
go.
it's
There's
I
a
love it. Yeah, it's an interesting one because I've done it both ways. I've done it where it's like, and it all is around time. It's all sometimes it boils down to how much time I've got, how many people in the room. It's like a people human time management puzzle. And I've done ones where it's longer. It was usually with students where it's like, oh, we've got even longer, so you can tell more of the story. And when they're capturing it, they can write even more of it down. And but then in the corporate world, it's more like, you've only got a minute to tell your story. You've got a little card to write the summary of it. So I think that's one of the levers we have is to play with that and
Mm.
play with how long people have, how are they summarizing, how are they communicating, their model and things like that. But yeah, cool.
That is the best segue into talking about industry and prisons. That's almost like a rehearsal, right? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
because something I hadn't thought of at all, which is, any other field, I would argue, does not have time to look at their models, build their models,
Yeah,
and have a lot of time
they
in
do.
there.
Isn't it so
And
interesting?
actually kind of building and in several prisons kind of doing stuff like taking Polaroid pictures.
Yeah.
So they build something that positive, an incredible moment, and it's on the Polaroid, it's on the picture of your cell. So
Mm.
when the drone coming to drop some drugs comes off at 3 in the morning,
Mm.
and the prisoner is tempted, they'd
Mm.
look at, true story. This guy was telling
Yeah.
me, he said, I looked at the Polaroid and looked at the little bricks, and I haven't touched it since, and it's been
Yeah.
6 weeks. Which for him is
Wow.
massive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, this is awesome. Like, this
Yeah.
is awesome. And I'd never thought, I've done where you take pictures on your phones and stuff, but like, the whole flatland thing, like, we're talking about actually having something tangible, like having
Mm.
the Polaroid pictures. I mean, maybe it's another tip, I don't know, but like, I am loving it.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
get to show it on your fridge, or kind of put your fridge at home or kind of whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Just on those Polaroids, interesting. I love the technology's moved along a bit in the last few years. So it was actually pre-pandemic. So it was what, like 5, 6 years ago. I actually bought like about 12 of the Fujifilm Instax cameras, and they actually had one camera, and they've probably got it now, where you take the Polaroid, it pops out, but it also keeps a digital copy. And so I then took the cameras back afterwards. So people had their Polaroid, and I got a digital copy so that I could, upload it and
nice.
do all that sort of stuff with it. And I'm sure it's moved on since then. It's even better. The only thing I found was the cost. They are a pretty penny each of those, but if the client wants to pay for it, but there's this workaround. I mean, Lego Series Play is all about creating those 3D things, and there's some facilitation techniques that talk about creating the totem, creating the thing that is the lasting sort of artifact. And I don't get people to hold on to their models. And so the Polaroid thing is the artifact. It's it's not stuck in your phone. It's the physical thing. And it pairs so well with the Lego vibe of, the 70s and 80s and Polaroids and stuff like that. Another modern way to do it as well is you can actually shoot off photos to a printer that printer shoots out Polaroids themselves. So it's like you're in the room, they take it with their normal sort of camera, the normal phone, and then they just press a button and it shoots it off to a printer off to the side, and it shoots out the Polaroids as well. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it. But yeah, I should do that again. I haven't done it for a while, but it's a really nice, I guess, add-on. It's just an extra thing, and obviously pretty important for what you do. One thing I was going to say, Al, you mentioned about with prisoners is time, and it's ironic. I was just thinking about it. It's like they probably have the thing that most of us don't have, which is time to reflect, to, that they've got all that time. They obviously have restrictions in many, many other ways, but they can think about things more, both in the moment, the bills, afterwards, because, they've got a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah.
And it's made me think maybe I should be not more conscious, but maybe I should think more about my process and how to create even more time for people to whether it's afterwards, giving guidance around how to extend the goodness from a session around reflection and things like that. But yeah, it just made me think a little bit about time and how much we
Absolutely.
don't have in the corporate world.
No, we really don't. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk about it in a minute on this model and stuff, but yeah, we really don't. And we waste it. We waste our time
Mm.
horrendously. Even when we're
Yeah.
present, look, we're not really present. We've got phones on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, yeah, the challenges of doing Lego Series Play in prison are interesting
Mm.
in that, like, you've got your bricks and that's it. You can't take a pen, you can't take paper, you can't take a computer. You've got no, like, they've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
an
You've just got the
internal
bricks.
raw, like just kind of going in. And I really enjoy that, and I think that's kind of good. Not again, not because I'm kind of amazing stuff. I think you are completely focused on what you are doing and the
Yeah.
personal point of view.
How
Um,
sorry to interrupt. How hard was it to get the bricks in? Just, when you're first pitching this, it's like, they're
so
pretty tight with a lot of stuff you've got to bring in. How'd you get
well,
it in
there's
there? How'd you smuggle it in?
yeah, so there's, we've all done the airport one, right? Okay, and then,
Yeah.
particularly like the way I do it, like 6'5", and so people are like, would you step this way, please, sir? We're gonna these bricks. Yes, yes.
Mm.
But yeah, I think there's three. I think I'm right here. There's the three categories of prison in A, B, C, and A is maximum security, high security. So Belmarsh is the kind of one that I've spent some time in.
Mm.
That is unreal. I think the security for that is huge.
Mm.
We'll scan, take a handful of bricks, scan individual bricks, checking it all out, kind of going through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I just love that they get behind bars. I said this to Johan Roos. He was, he's
Hmm.
doing some artificial intelligence Lego stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, and was, I was like, yeah, I want to be a part of that research group. I think it sounds really interesting. I was like, how awesome, that, like those bricks, because analog, so they get beyond those bars. The
yeah,
positive, like imagine him trying to, get his head around when it was created that this is one of the things it's going to be used for.
yeah. That's
But yeah,
amazing.
right,
Amazing.
okay. So prison, the industry, yeah, was it build your industry?
Yeah, yeah. Third, go to the third one. Show me. I'll bring you up. So it was a bit about your industry, what you're not talking about, all that sort of stuff.
Okay,
Hit us up
all
with
right,
it.
okay. Right. So, yeah, so here is, yeah, so this is the UK prison system. Now, I should come at this by like, I'm quite new to this. I've only been working in this situation for about a year. And although like done lots of police stuff, um, but yeah, I just love it for the same reason. I think they are places of authenticity. It's almost, there's no phones, give or take, some phones are smuggled in and stuff, but like it's real. It's like normal life times 10. So, here's the brick walls, so all the kind of prison gates. Here's, I think, what people think it is, and in some ways it is. They are violent, difficult, horrible places. They don't smell nice. There's lots of nastiness and evil and all that stuff. And on top here are the green flags, which is kind of representative of, it's the ultimate owning your stuff. Like especially if you're in, especially like category A to C, I don't think I kind of finish off, but A and C being for kind of quite minor offences and people are there for 6 months or whatever. But there are some people in Belmarsh who aren't getting out ever. And building with that was interesting. They're never going to feel grass. Like, and again, not excusology, and it's not whatever, try and be as non-judgmental as possible. Anyway, so all this is here. So yeah, great. So I think, it's, you can't get in. I think a lot of people think, um, prisons have it really easy. Some people think, no, it's a horrible place, all that stuff. And then this is kind of on the inside. So if we turn it around, a bit of a theme here on the inside. Right. So first of all, this guy over here, this is a governor of a prison called Neil Thomas, with his clear head and his phone and he's holding kindness and trust. And he was my first contact. And actually, the phone is the three asks. I sent him a 45-second LinkedIn message saying, I want to come to your prison, like 1, 2, 3. I want to kind of come and do change rehabilitation. What's going on? And he just smiled back and went, okay. And it was amazing. And the lightning bolt is he's an incredible leader. He posts quite a lot on LinkedIn and stuff. And he's spearheaded this, and I owe him some credit for this. Is like now I'm kind of in multiple prisons, but Loudon Grange is kind of where in near Nottingham and stuff is where the core focus of this is happening, and there's some research going on, and we're working quite closely. And then that there with the little gold is a prisoner and a prison officer playing Lego Serious Play. So behind the walls with the skeletons facing outwards, there's these green shoots, and the common theme being like the neon radar almost of communication, which is not only could you take a Polaroid picture, it's possible for a prisoner to build their family and send them the picture of the Lego model with a letter to resolve conflicts with their family, and that line there is the communication out of the prison, so they can't get out, but they can send the bricks out, and they can like they can write, they can do stuff, they can kind of get it out. So one particular story I had in mind was we had two like kind of lifers that were never getting out, and done some horrendous things and stuff, which has a challenge in itself. And they were sat with some prison officers, and they as they built this, started to realize how much they needed to repair, relationships on the outside, but they didn't think it was possible. And so that reflected best self. My reflected best self is this one guy who had, 60 self-harm scars up his arms. And he was old, like kind of 65, 70. Um, was what if you took a picture of this and wrote a letter? And you could see the penny drop. And he was like, yeah. I said I could. I said, even if you never see them again, and that's, I guess that's kind of coming full circle into like that hope. There is that positive stuff at the end, and I think we need to amplify that, and like kind of more and more of that is spot on. So yeah, so I think yeah, prison system, but from the outside, coming back there, it's in the news at the moment a lot in the UK about early release schemes. So they're releasing a lot of kind of prisoners to try and free up spaces. But I think these people are getting out at some point, like I know we talked about people who are never getting out. That's quite a small number. Who do you want getting out?
Yeah.
Who cooped up for 20 years, unable to express themselves, unable to build a new life, build a new identity, focus on the positive, They've just harnessed and sat in that negative and got angrier and angrier and angrier, and then out they go, and they don't have another opportunity of what's going on, which I think is where Ricky Killeen comes in for me. And then I'll kind of finish with this one, which I think kind of summarizes the whole thing. And this is the based on the bad apple theory. Have you seen? Do you know Philip Zimbardo, the psychologist who talks about the Stanford prison experiment? Does that ring any bells?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So for people who don't know and stuff, and he does a TED talk called The Psychology of Evil. Fantastic stuff, right? And talks about the bad apple. So in here we've got the bad apple. So said prisoner, said kind of stuff, whatever, right? And then in the bad barrel. So the barrel is the brown bit here. And we miss the point here from psychology and social psychology is almost who's making the barrel. So, you and me, I would like to say are pretty good apples, if you put us in a warm, wet barrel for long enough, we're going to go moldy. Like, it doesn't matter how resilient we are. It doesn't matter how much support we have. It doesn't matter that kind of stuff. If there's mold in there, like, it's going to go wrong. And actually looking at, well, who's making the barrel, as in the government, the institutions, kind of happening, what's happening there. So why is it, I'm here in Scandinavia today, right? Okay, why is it that Scandinavian prisons are such a different style of kind of what's going on there? And, is there something we need to learn from that? How do you get the balance right between not excusing what they've done and what people have done? But I think we can all relate to that. You think about the bad apple, when we've all done something that we're not very proud of. But I think it's important not to just write people off, and I'll use Ricky Click. I'm sure he won't mind me doing this, but like, some terrible stuff. And many would say he's a bad apple, but where he's from, Stanley in the Northeast, that not only the lack of opportunities, and number one, he was sticking up for his sister anyway, and it was almost kind of retaliation of kind of what's happening there. But I'd spent some time when I kind of parked my car and stepped out of my car, and it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and there's street workers walking around in the morning, street workers and people looking at my car, people, what's going on, and I'm just there to visit, like, what's kind of happening there. And there's an entrenched culture of drinking there. There's an entrenched culture of very masculine miners, men who don't talk about their feelings ever to anyone. So yes, it's not excusing what's happened, but like, look around, look at this here. And so what I love, and what I love about what he's doing is, and then he went and set up a gym, and it's not just a gym. Like, you walk up and the first thing you see is home. Like, you walk up the stairs home, and he thinks, and he's terrifying. Like, don't get me wrong, right? He's bigger than I am. He's just like, whoa, to look at and stuff. And then actually, like, it's not just a gym; it's a community hub, and people go there. And he started a mental health group, and all this stuff has happened, and it just wouldn't have happened without the bad, like without the dark. And I think we got to look after those society, and say we write people off as bad apples. I was written off as a bad apple by several communities, after kind of some stuff that happened to me. And I kind of managed very luckily, and due to probably me being who I am, and being quite privileged and lucky. But yeah, I think we really like to think that we're on one side of those bars, but I think we're all in prison. And I think some people's bars are relationships, some people's bars are made of chemicals, some people's bars are made of drinks, and I think the worst is some people's bars are made of skin. I think people are silently in there trying to work out their head and trying to get stuff done. And I think Legacy Play for me is just one of the most phenomenal tools I have ever seen in my life. And I'm so excited for the field and kind of where it's going. So
yeah, I love what you're saying there. It's like, I do often reflect, it's just it's the luck of your birth around genetics, but it's the luck of your birth around the environment, the context. Like, why was I born into a relatively loving family in Australia, quite, nice suburb, and, family directed me in a particular way, certain education, like, versus many, many, many other people in the world that, we don't choose where we're born into. And it's interesting, just as you were talking about all throughout those models there, about the prison system, and, that powerful story of someone building and being able to take a photo and send it out with a story, and it really goes to the heart of, okay, so what is a prison system about? Like, is it rehabilitation? Is it just punishment? Everyone has their view on that, but it's like, if we truly believe it's about rehabilitation, if people should be coming out, different to when they came in, and not in a, it's been a hard place and I was in with hard people and now I'm worse and I reoffend, but doing something like Lego Serious Play to sort of shift that environment, shift that context that they're in for 6 months, 12 months, half their life. That was pretty powerful, man. That story you told me about someone, repairing those relationships with people outside. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny to think that this method that say I use in a very clean, very cultured corporate environment, can be used in so many different ways. And like you mentioned about Johan Roos inventing it and the other people involved with it. And who would have thought it would go to these parts and extents? And I think the work that you do is just testament to what Lego Series Play is, which is, it's a thinking tool, it's a communication tool, it's a self-reflection tool, it's a expression tool, and it just has no bounds. Like when I hear you talk about what you do with it, whether it's within prison populations, I looked at some of your videos around first responders and, some of the work you're doing there with police in the US and things like that. And I'm just like, yeah, this thing just should be everywhere. And and you're putting into places that I would have never dreamed of from here in Australia. So that's why I love connecting with you in London and now just hearing what you're doing. And yeah, and it's
I
funny because it's like when you say that, when you talk about it, like I'm picturing it and I'm picturing the process and the steps, but then I'm picturing it, in a particular environment with prisoners or prison guards and different contexts, and I'm just eternally amazed. So thanks for sharing all of that.
You're so welcome. I think the
Yeah.
yeah, the Australia thing is very interesting, and even kind of be very very careful. I'm a novice in this sort of kind of history, but like
Yeah.
we don't learn about what Britain did over there. It's not that's not a page of history you learn about the Stolen Generation
Yeah.
and stuff and that things. And I think just it's another example. That's another blind spot, inverted commas. But
Yeah.
if it works for prisoners who can't read and who struggle with that, what an
Mm.
amazing tool to go off and work in the Northern Territory and some of the far
Mm.
out reaches and stuff. It just takes someone to have the confidence to kind of take that leap and make it happen.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, have been hugely inspired by kind of what you've done. You're very much, you talk about Big Four. I think you're way up there. Like it's
Wow.
awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting having worked for lots of different corporates and now consulting with lots of like everyone's the same. Like it's just it's funny. Like you mentioned about Australia's history. It's like every country, every people, like everywhere on earth has a history, has stories that are built up to it. And I think what you've described with Lego Series Play and what we know as well, it's just and even from the start when you talked about authenticity and your Pandora's box, it's like the world's just better when we deal with that shit. Like it's just better when it's all there. Everyone comes from somewhere. There's always environments and contexts, and whether it's the example I like to use of a corporate team where it's like it's uncovering the truth about a communication issue, or whether it's a prisoner uncovering their own truth. It's like it's just, I mean, we go around too much in circles. It's like, let's just get to it. Let's just like put it on the table, be authentic, deal with it. And whatever context that it's in, the video I watched of you where, you were talking with some first responders in the US, and it's like it's funny. I see the patterns now of how powerful it is. It's because it's always kept within people, and all Lego Series Play does is it brings it out, and then suddenly everyone goes, "Oh shit, that's what we're experiencing. That's what I'm experiencing. Oh, it's slightly different, but I can understand." And I think that's what I see the commonality in all Lego Series Plays. It's just getting that humanness on the table and dealing with it rather than having it shut away and the mind going. You talked about mental health earlier, like that's what happens. Like if you're just fighting those things yourself, like that's when
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can do your head in. So yeah, it's a different context, but it's like I'm hugely excited about the work you're doing. I'm hugely excited. That little model you did about me, I'm hugely excited about empowering people in whatever context. Like one of the examples I give is here in Australia, an academic that goes and uses it with the Indigenous population in East Timor, and I just think that's just awesome. And then a few months back, I was training people around trauma here. Like they do trauma training around understanding trauma. I actually should connect you all up. Um, but yeah, I loved it. As we sort of move towards the latter part of the podcast, anything you want to share with maybe people are listening. There's a variety of people. It's maybe people that are even new to Lego Series Play, not trained in it, people that are maybe just being trained in it, or maybe the experienced seasoned professional. There's a lot of people probably listening or at least listening in the future. Um, Anything you would say to them around your experience with Lego Serious Play, your experience with getting it into unusual places, dealing with, probably different people than a lot of us deal with Lego series players? Any tips? I know you've given us a lot of tips early on, but any last sort of parting thoughts about that
Uh,
for the facilitators?
what a brilliant question. Um,
Without
I feel
notice, I might say as well.
as you were saying that, I was thinking of the amount of people who are far better than me at that stuff. But like, yeah, I'd say back yourself.
Mm,
I think some of my mistakes have been I've trusted too many people to
mm,
come with me on this journey. And yes, I've owned my stuff, and yeah, that's fine, and I've had a lot of work to do. I'd say, yeah, two things. One, back yourself, like, and
mm,
go in and be you. Go in and be whatever it may be. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a bit rough around the edges or kind of wear what you want to wear as well. That's the thing. I think I
yeah,
started trying to wear like G stuff, and now I wear kind of black this and black combats because it's
yeah.
comfortable and it looks pretty
That's who
badass.
you
I'm like,
got. Yeah.
it makes me think. So it's quite good. But I think, yeah, back yourself. And the other thing I think is basics. And I am still mastering this, which is,
Mm,
being in, Copenhagen stuff, did not sleep well last night.
mm,
Kind of lots and lots of water, lots of meditation. I'd say if
mm,
anyone who hasn't meditated before, I used to, I'm ashamed to say mock meditation. I just would think as a
mm,
as a kind of positive psychologist and psychology professional,
mm,
would be like, yeah, does it work? Does it really? I know there's a couple of studies, but and it
mm,
wasn't until it was explained to me that it's like the gym. Don't go in expecting this piece straight away. Like,
mm,
it can take years for you to kind of build up slowly. Start with 1 minute, 5 minutes, and I'd say if you just put a guy called Ajahn Brahm,
mm.
Ajahn Brahm. He's a British monk in all the orange stuff. Very
Yeah.
funny, very good for Western audiences. And he just does thousands of videos and stuff. But game changer, I think game changer, and I think
Nice.
stay completely off alcohol would be my advice when you're on tour,
Nice.
when you're on tour or working out, because I think that's something I've never heard any Lego Series Play practitioner talk about yet, which is you do an amazing workshop and you're not at home,
Mm.
the temptation to when people want to carry on the conversation and even do business, even like swap business cards. They want to ask you, "Are you coming to the bar later?" Kind of whatever. Da, da, da. And that was
Yeah.
catching me out. You mentioned North Carolina. Like, unbelievably, that started to snowball out of
Mm.
nowhere. It kind of, yeah, one, back yourself, and two, just remember the basics, like go to bed
Yeah.
early, boring stuff, because you never quite know what's coming with these bricks, what's going to come out
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
people. And I think
True. And you got to
you
be
owe
on.
it.
Like,
Yeah, yeah. I think you owe it to the people as much as you can. You're never going to sleep as well as you do at home and all that stuff. But
mm.
but yeah, basics and a lot of water. And then if anyone, I don't know anyone who doesn't know this yet, but like Atomic Habits, the James Clear book,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, the 1%. So kind
Mm.
of figure out, and like your thing of carrying the bricks, the round thing like
Bags.
that.
Yeah.
It took me a while to feel it out, use a flag, and then can scoop it up afterwards. But start
Yeah.
working on your percent so you don't have to pack a bag. So
Yeah.
kind of they're ready to go. You've got duplicate, toothbrush, whatever
Mm.
your kit is, so you can relax as much as possible because assume it's going to be rough, even as
Yeah.
exciting
Yeah.
as it is running
Yeah.
around
It
under.
brings up a lot. And you want to be your best self in those situations because, it can bring up a lot with Lego Serious Play and context. I really, really, really like that tip about just being yourself and just, I think that's one of the things I realized early on. It's like no one can copy you. Like, Lego Series Play is a open source method and we all know the steps and all that sort of stuff, but no one's you. And I think as long as you go in as you and back yourself, and I think the biggest barrier in people's minds, or biggest barrier is just their minds. It's just yourself. Like literally, I had this realization a few years back. It's like, think of human history. How easy is it now for us to be chatting? Like we can have this thing called the internet. We can have these video cameras. We can connect. I can connect with a client anywhere in the world. Like literally every single tool you have, from a website to the way to connect with clients, to get in front of people, to get paid. Like it's literally the easiest it's been ever in human history. So what's stopping you? And the only thing is what's going on in here. It's like you imposter syndrome. I'm not good at, I mean, even you said it before. You said, oh, there's plenty of people better than me. And even I've caught myself saying it with stuff. It's like, well, I'm not the greatest facilitator here and there. And it's like, who cares if it's true or not? It's like, swish that out of the way because I just think our own minds are just other things that hold us back. So I would just echo what you said about those tips and just be you and just do it. Just go for it.
I've
It's
got a question
awesome.
for you. Am I
Yeah.
allowed
Oh,
to
yeah.
give you a question? Which is, um, having a lot of I think both kind of prisoners and prison staff who kind of are getting really interested in this and
Mm,
to the end of the sentence, or they want to do it, they want to train in it, and kind of, you know, and they're really scared, they're really terrified that they can see the power of it and they want to use it to help and all that kind of
mm,
stuff. It makes me think about, I think a lot of people are quite frightened of this, of like,
mm.
it's such a powerful tool, and it's almost, you go on a Google of Lego Serious Play and it starts off quite exciting, then you think there's no way, I can't do this, I don't understand how this is going to
Yeah,
happen.
it feels too big.
Yeah, what advice would you give to, let's say John, who comes out of prison and he's done his sentence and he really wants to go help people in his community with Lego
Mm.
Serious Play, but he's really scared, doesn't really have any qualifications, like he can do it, and he's emotionally
He's not
intelligent.
like a facilitator. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right
Yeah.
at the beginning. Right at the beginning,
Yeah.
what tips how do you think?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And like I think when I started, I felt like Lego Serious Play, like if you think of its roots, it's a strategy tool. It was originally designed as like a 2-day strategy workshop to help C-suite to do their thing. And I think we're slowly getting to a point where it's something different. And so I felt like it was a very niche, it was a very specialized, there was a lot of expertise needed. You probably, to do that original use case, you had to be a good facilitator, like, high level to carry a day, like 2-day workshop and all that sort of stuff. So I feel like we've come a long way from that, but I still feel like we're not at the point where it's that easy for someone to just pick up. But I think we should get there. Like I think we need to get there for Lego Serious Play. So I always see in the future of Lego Serious Play, and all right, we'll get to your question, like a decent answer to it. But I think we're slowly getting there, and there'll always be a place for facilitators and expertise and people that are, sort of that's their profession and their craft. But I definitely see a world where there are simpler, easier resources for people who have experienced it. They've just gone to a session. They don't have the most amazing facilitation skills or how to run a meeting or get up in front of a group, but there's a resource, there's a set of resources that are simplified, that are easy, that they can grab and start using. Like it's like if you think about the steps, we've gone from ridiculously hard facilitation of a strategy workshop. And then there's participation. So it's like there's this huge chasm in the middle. And we have the certification training, which I think is great. And there's a few of us that have written books, which I think is, it's sort of moving, filling some of those gaps. I would love to write another simplified book, which is like, it's not Lego Serious Play for Dummies, but it's Lego Serious Play for the next step. It's like the first step for people that just it's the John. It's the what you described. So I would say at the moment it's not there. That it's not there. But I would
Yep.
say to John, just grab some bricks and do it in some really low risk situations. Like the keys of how do I imbue meaning into these bricks? How do I tell a story? Do it with a family member. Just one on one, almost like in a coaching situation. You build, I build. Um, do it with a few little friends. I had a person who actually was trained as a certified facilitator, but she did it with her friendship group. Actually did it at the pub, and there's great photos of like these, it's all her girlfriends around, and there's these like glasses and bottles of wine, and she's got these shared models, and they built individual models of what does their friendship group mean to them, and then they built it into a shared model, and I'm just like, anyone can do that. Like it's just have a go. So yeah, I think we got some work to do as an industry. But I'd say to that person right now is just do it in some low risk situations, and there's plenty of free resources out there, but there'll be more in the future. It's one of the things, my book. I want to get it half the size, and I want to get it easier, like to understand. Um, so yeah, good question. My God, I feel like I should get people to ask me questions. No, no, everyone hears me talking too much anyway. This is why I love podcasts because I get to hear from the real people out there doing this stuff, which is in amazing contexts. So, Al, thank you. Amazing work. Where can people find you, follow you? Like, how do we learn more? How do we, follow that journey, which is it's just starting and awesome.
Yeah, yeah. The website is lspcr.uk.
Yeah.
That's it. So Lego Serious
Yeah.
Play Conflict Resolution, LSPCR. That's it. So on LinkedIn, with my name.
Yep.
It really, that's kind of all I'm doing. I'm very, very LinkedIn focused, not really kind of social
Yeah.
media. But yeah, and do the kind of, the 1 day, 2 day at the moment, and that's kind of it, and do some odd consultation. People get in touch, do big projects and stuff. That's great. And then yeah, working on a kind of almost like a university module level stuff for prisons, which is kind of which is really exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think the thing is, like, I will help anyone I think,
Mm.
you know, because some people kind of message and stuff, and people don't message back and all that. And I get people are busy, you know.
Mm.
But if somebody needs, you know, and it's not going to take like hours and hours and hours, you know, then very, very happy to kind of, you know, offer advice or help or support.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah,
But I feel like from having chatted with you in London, like there's so much more that we haven't discussed as well. You just mentioned a few things there about, courses and other stuff. So uh, a big part of me doing this podcast is just to, introduce amazing people like you to more LSP people. But there's a second episode with you coming along at some point over the next 6 to 12 months, because I want to hear, you gave us such wonderful sort of stories here and there. I want to hear more case studies, more stories of your, what's going to happen over the next 6 to 12 months as well. So I definitely will get you back on because you're doing amazing work.
thank you.
Awesome.
That's really, really kind.
All right,
Thank you.
let's finish it up. I've got to get my kids to bed. This is always the way with podcasts. I'm doing up late at night on holidays, all sorts of stuff. And now you're in Copenhagen in Denmark, so it's like you got to get to work as
Exactly.
well.
In the Netherlands.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Michael. You're nice.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks everyone, and stay tuned. We've got more guests. I mean, I fear for the person who has to follow you in the podcast because that was an awesome podcast. But we've got some more guests, and yeah, I'm gonna come up with some individual episodes as well. I've got a few things. Interestingly, Al, I'm gonna talk about facilitation skills. A couple of things I want to talk about on some solo podcasts, so I'll get those out soon as well. But thanks again, man, and see everyone. Enjoy the Lego in the meantime. Get building, whether it's friends or family or at work. Thanks everyone. Bye.